I'm not making any money talking these days. Good Christ. I'm a dick, folks. I'm not gonna lie to you. Still am. I guess I am a decent guy because I'm a fucking jerk, and I'm not a jerk. Apparently, I'm a dick. I'm not an awful guy, but I've done so much ridiculous stuff. I'm an awful guy. Hey, what's happening? 40-Year-Old Boy Podcast, the 40-Year-Old Boy Podcast. Mike Schmidt. I am the 40-year-old boy, soon to be the 41-year-old boy. I don't know what we're going to do then. You know what I think we're going to do? We're going to keep it as the 40-year-old boy, because that just works. It's going to be that way until I'm 50, and then I'll change it to the 50-year-old boy. Because if you listen to the 40-year-old boy, you're like, hey, that makes sense. He's the 40-year-old boy. But if nobody listens to the 44-year-old boy, that sounds awful. Although I still will be the 44-year-old boy, but I'll have the mindset of a 40-year-old boy. I don't know what the fuck any of that means, but who cares? That's a lot of numbers. I just threw a lot of numbers at you folks. Coming to you live from Riverside, California. Not live on disc, on tape. I don't know. Eric's the producer. He knows what it is. I come here and babble. But we're in Riverside in what I'm not going to lie to you folks is a clutter-filled apartment today. I mean, normally I come here and Eric's a big guy and his wife is very nice and they keep a fine house. But I'm sitting here, I'm staring at like a pancake griddle and an iron and a can opener and God knows what else. And the recyclables is really full and there's vitamins spilled. It looks like you had the microfilm hidden in here and someone decided they had to find it and quick. Because your house is a shambles this week. I'm not going to lie to you. But that's okay. I mean, it's wonderful, and actually, why shouldn't it match the rest of Riverside? This whole town looks like a snow globe somebody picked up and shook. I mean, it's fucking awful. And I don't know why I do that. It's not bad. Who cares? It looks like any other town off the freeway. All right. So, but that's what I do. I shit on stuff. I found out, I shouldn't say that I found it out about myself, but that's what I do. Like even in like my comedy, I found this, I did a show last night, at a burlesque show. It was it was the Monday Night Tease, at the 3 clubs in, Hollywood. And I had warned, my friend Lily books the show and had asked me to host, and she'd asked me to host a lot, and I kept saying, no, I kept begging off because I'm far too important for that sort of thing. In reality, what I was scared shitless, because I don't want to go and host a show where everybody's waiting to see the naked women, and they got to put up with, Joe the Clown up front. Because I don't know if you know this, when I do stand-up, I perform as Joe the Clown. I wear a wig and a nose, and it is not good for anybody. But that's what I do, because it allows me to hide my true self, which only comes out here on the podcast. Enjoy it. So I had told Lily, I go, look, I have a tendency to shit on stuff, so I don't want, the last thing I need to do is get a fucking Lee Press-on nail in the eye because I told Vixen Violette that, her thong didn't fit right, in the spirit of humor. And, but it went fine. Everything went great. The show was great. And, it's a burlesque show. So again, I go up and I do my nonsense and try to entertain all of the ironic hats and soul patches that are in the audience who are pretending to support burlesque like they like it, but they don't really. They're just there to stare at tits. And why wouldn't you be? Because it's I'm in a room with hot chicks and they're all about to take their clothes off. Who wants to listen to me talk? So I had always told Lily that I didn't want to host, but I did, and it was fun. It turned out good. Everybody was really nice. It was a good crowd, and everybody had fun. And it's weird, man, because Lily's my friend. And she knows my wife and I, and we've actually been to lunch with her and her husband. We've gone out to the movies and things like that. And so we're friends. Like, I know her outside of that world. But then I go to her burlesque show because she wants me to go. Like, if I invite somebody to my comedy show, I always feel weird. Because then it's like, hey, come support me because I'm, trying to get my career off the ground. And come and pay to see me. It's stupid. It's just such a weird ego thing. So I don't. And consequently, I have to do a radio show out of somebody's house because I've never promoted myself in any sort of meaningful way. But Lily will, she'll want me to come to the burlesque show, which is fine. So I'll go to it. And then you get there, and Lily's, like I said, Lily's my friend. I go to the movies, we go to lunch. I know her as a normal person. And then I walk in, and she's naked. I mean, she's walking around. She's, got a fucking, a crazy clamshell top with tassels hanging off of it and no pants on. And she's trying to talk to me like, hey, what's going on, Mike? I don't know. I'm staring at your vagina. I mean, other than that, things seem to be, fairly normal as if they were. And I don't know how to relate to her on that level because it's like we're friends. But then when I see her naked, and it's not even I'm not gonna lie to you. I think I speak for most men that if there's a naked woman, we're looking. I mean, Christ, I told you a couple weeks ago there was a fucking naked corpse I'm staring up at, at between her legs, and finding out that she wasn't dead later, so I feel much better about myself. But at the same time, you got to sneak a peek. So I look, and if that's uncomfortable for her, then you know what? Put a fucking shirt on. You know why? Because it's her problem. God knows it has nothing to do with me staring at her tits. She just has to get dressed, and then everything will be fine. But doing the show last night, and my friend Lily is a burlesque dancer, and so I've seen a lot of burlesque, and you start to learn the difference between burlesque and stripping, because burlesque is all about the tease and kind of about the art of it, where they've got their, sure, there's stripping involved, but they get down to pasties, and then they're dancing, and they're actually playing like fancy music, and there's scarves, and doing all that. In stripping, it's just like, and they all have fancy names, like I said, Lux the Quad and all these different names. And in stripping, it's just like, fuck it. Hi, I'm Brittany, and here's my baby house. Check it out. Give me $1. And so that's what it is. It's very much cut to the chase with stripping, as much as they, want you to think that they're dancers. But the worst is when strippers try to meld some sort of art with stripping, like they're trying to go that extra mile for some reason. I don't know if to make themselves feel better about being strippers. One time I went to Vegas with two of my buddies, and we wound up in the Palomino Club. And the Palomino Club is totally nude. This is back when in Vegas, that was the only totally nude place. This is, 20 years ago I was there. I don't know how long it was. And we're in there, and we've been up all night because it's Vegas. You're out all night, you're gambling, and then you're up all day watching football, and you're just killing time now. And so then we wind up in the Palomino at like 4 p.m, which is, who wants to be in a fucking strip club at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Even the strippers don't want to be there. So we get in there, and there's probably like 15 guys. And you got to pay, I think it was like $25 cover to get in and 2 drinks. Hello, $9 Coca-Cola. So already, and you have to buy them both right up front. So it's $25 to get in and $18 for Cokes. I'm already 43 down just sitting without even seeing a tit, not even seeing as much as an ass cheek. I'm down $43. So we sit down, and finally the strippers come out, and they're listless as they would be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Wouldn't you be? I don't even want to be there, like I said. So we're watching. So finally they bring out this one girl. And her name was Valkyrie. And I went, all right, because usually they have a crazy name, but Valkyrie, I went, something interesting is going to happen here. So Valkyrie comes out, and she actually performed to Flight of the Valkyries. Is it Ride of the Valkyries or Flight of the Valkyries? Flight? Eric says Flight. So she performed to that, bum ba da ba da dun da dun da da, that song. So it starts. She comes out, and she's straight up in like pelts and a Viking helmet. And I'm like, all right, I don't know how much she's invested in this, but this is worth $1. At this point now, I don't care how much I'm down. I got to cough up some money for her. But then she starts doing like an awkward dance, like to the bum, 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 bum. Like, I can't describe it. You'd have to see me do it. But it's literally like step, 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 stretch, step, 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 split, step, 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 vagina, step, 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 step. And my friends and I, then, all right, so she takes a pelt off and flings it, and she actually spun the Viking helmet around on her head, like it was on a thing where it's like, bzzz. And I said, oh, Christ, this girl has invested so much in this. And that she tried to do it once at midnight, and they were like, you know what? Save that for the 4 o'clock in the afternoon shift, because these guys are hardcore and they're just here to see rack. Nobody wants to see you and your fucking Viking interpretation. But sure enough, she starts spinning the hat. The pelts come off. Then she lit matches. She lit like sparkler, like matches, like really small, and she stuck them on her nipples. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know where. Was it like a parable for the Vikings discovering fire? I have no idea what it was. But at that point, that was it. She's doing the dance. She's spinning the hat. She's got the fucking fire on her nipples. And we start cracking up. We can't stop laughing because we've been up all night too. That's another thing. We're in Vegas. So we've been, betting all night and watching football all day and drinking. So we're sitting in this bar watching this fucking chick dance around in animal pelts with a Viking hat spinning and fire on her nipples. And we are cracking up to the point, because we're overtired too. So I'm hitting the fucking walkway. I'm like, boom, boom. And we start laughing so that everybody starts laughing. And the entire bar is laughing at fucking poor Valkyrie as she dances around, fire tits and spinning hat. And she continues. She's still got she's still trying to make dough. But we stop tipping, forever, because we cannot stop laughing at this ridiculous interpretation. Finally, she flees. She just flees the stage. Scoops up a pelt, fire nipples and all, takes off. And then they came and threw us out. Kicked us out of the strip club because we made a stripper feel bad. How awful is that? Seriously, guys, they said if you're not going to tip, we can't have you here. I'm like, dude, I'm already down like $70 from drinks and tipping anyway. They said, sorry, man, you can't be here. But yeah, so I made a stripper feel bad about herself, and they threw us out. I can't help it. I'm sorry, I didn't come there to see an SCTV sketch. I came there to see naked flesh. But I mean, but it's funny because now, 20 years later or whatever, I actually appreciate the effort of that when I go to a strip club. There's nothing worse than going to a strip club and seeing some bored bottle blonde teetering on her 9-inch lucite heels, just staring at you, waiting to steal your money. I mean, that's the worst. So now I long for the days of Valkyrie putting in an effort because, you go to a strip club now and it's all about the cash. So we actually try to make your own fun. Like I went to a strip club in Peoria, Illinois called Big Al's, and it used to be an amazing strip club, still good, but it used to be like in Playboy's top 10 in the nation. So you know what we're dealing with. And I was doing a road gig in Peoria, as I worked there a ton of times, and I was with my friend Brian, who I was in with when I told you the previous story. And me and Brian and our friend Marge and a couple other people went down to Big Al's. So we're there, and we're hanging out, and this one stripper comes out, and she is like the punk stripper, like crazy tattoos, a ton of ink, and piercings, and like a mohawk, but like really pretty. Like the kind of where you're looking at her going, why would you do that to yourself? Because you're crazy, amazing, hot. And now you've just, kind of mucked it up. But that's fine. So, but she was like the tough guy stripper, like you could tell. So we went down front and we're tipping her, and she leans over and I call her over, and I kind of like sat up and I go, hit me. She goes, what? I said, hit me. She goes, what do you mean? I go, seriously, knock the shit out of me. And she just goes, literally just, all right, wham, blasts me, I mean, hard in the face, just slaps me as hard as she can. And again, it was great because then, where it's all like, you just hear the music, it's like, dung, 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 everybody's, yay, woohoo, oh! And everybody thought I did something wrong. So then the bouncers come running over, and she's like, no, and she like kind of holds up her hand, she's like, no, it's okay. And my friends are like, what did you do? I said, that's what I'm talking about. And proceeded to, give her more dollars, and then stood up again and told her to hit me again. And she danced over, and then this time she didn't even question it. And thankfully not with a closed fist, because because she had rings on, and that's all I needed to do is go home with a ring scar on my face. And my wife's like, hey, what happened to you? Oh, nothing, poison. Hit me with a right hook at the strip club. I mean, that explains nothing, quite frankly. But man, I had her blast me a couple of times. It was great. The whole bar went up for grabs, and it was fun. And she actually then sadly, she like was finishing, and she came over to tip, and I was like, thanks. She hit me again for no reason. Took a free shot, just like walked over and gave me a sneak right hand, bang. And at that point, you can't complain. What are you going to do? I've already taken a couple of shots from her. That's just an ass whooping I got to take at that point. But I actually admired the fact that she came over and just snuck in a third shot for no reason. Yeah, try explaining away that to your wife. And but I went to tons of strip clubs when I was on the road, because that's what you did. It was either that or get Taco Bell and sit in your hotel room. And I don't drink, so I mean, if I don't drink, I got to have a vice, and my vice was naked chicks. So we Mike Toomey is a comic from Chicago, really good friend, and probably the funniest guy. He and Jimmy Pardo are the two funniest guys I've ever worked with. Just incredibly hysterical, so funny. And I was lucky enough to where Mike and I would work together on the road all the time. Like, he would get a gig and he would bring me along with him. And so I was able to travel all over with Mike, and we got to be good friends. Here's a weird story. One time we're in the car, we were driving overnight to some gig, and he has been in Chicago like his entire career. He's established himself there. That's where he grew up. And because I started in Los Angeles for 2 years, went to Chicago for 5 years, and then came back out to Los Angeles. But I'm in the car with Mike, and he knew all the Chicago comedians, and he could do legendary impressions of all of them. Like, he knew how to do all their voices. So I said to him one time, I said, man, I go, you know what? When I was 18 years old, and I was 16. Was I 16 or 18? 85? Yeah, I was 18. I went to a comedy club in Chicago, and I told him, I said, I saw a comedian, and he did a bit about Family Affair. He did a bit about Brian Keith. And Family Affair was a show in the 60s, whatever. So, and he did an impression of Brian Keith talking to the kids and how he was, on Valium and all that stuff. And I said to Mike, I go, that guy was hysterical. And he was one of the guys who made me want to do comedy. And do you know who that was? And Mike goes, yeah, that was me. It was so weird that it come full circle, because I saw him when I was 18. And because we're almost the same age, he's just a couple years older than me, but he was doing stand-up at that time, and I saw him, because I remember I could still do the routine verbatim, and I did it for him in the car, and he's like, wow, that's really freaky, because it was just, he was someone who made me want to do comedy, and then I was lucky enough to become friends with him and work with him. So we Mike and I would go on the road, and he and I went to Peoria one time, and we went up at Big Al's, and there was a girl there, a stripper, who had like really big thighs and like a huge backyard. I mean, just like a serious bubble ass. And so we started calling her Bo Jackson because she was like literally, she looked like Bo Jackson from the waist down. Assuming Bo has no cock, but I mean, so we started calling her Bo Jackson, but then we got the entire like strip club calling her Bo Jackson, and she wasn't too thrilled about that because, they're like, hey man, what, we got to get Bo Jackson over here. And she's just like, what do you, my name's Cinnamon, whatever the fuck her name was. Mike and I were on the road, and I think it was South Dakota. Mike's going to call me and tell me I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was. But after the show, we had nothing to do, and it's South Dakota, for God's sakes. So we found out there was a strip bar, and so we go back to the room, and I change, and we walk in to the strip bar. So when we walk inside, Mike is probably, I would say he's 7 paces ahead of me because he's really excited to get into the strip club. God forbid he waits for me. He goes ahead and hustles in ahead of me. And I got to tell you, we're wearing, Mike's wearing like a Chicago Cubs jacket, and I'm wearing like a sweatshirt, like just a gray sweatshirt with Bermuda, like plaid shorts and, gym shoes. And I have my glasses on because, I'm off work. So I'm dressed down. So we go into the strip club, and we walk in. And Mike walks past the bar. And as he walks past the bar, there's like 8 guys at the bar. And I noticed that they're wearing the same jacket. And then I see the jacket on the back of it. It says Outlaws. So these guys are in the Outlaws Biker Club. And as Mike walks by with his hands in his pockets, looking unassuming with his Cubs jacket on, one of them turns around, and he looks like William Forsythe out of Stone Cold with Brian Bosworth. Have you ever seen that movie? He whips around. He's just this greasy Fu Manchu, long, stringy hair. And he sees me and him, and he just goes, "Who the fuck are those guys?" And he throws a beer bottle on the ground. And I immediately go, "We are going to die." So, as I'm catching all this in 30 seconds, Mike is already at the bar, at the stage, talking to the stripper because she sees him immediately and goes, "Hey, hun," because he's not some, greasy, 2 felony count meth carrying biker. She sees some guy who's dressed nice. She immediately goes, "Hey, how are you?" And he's like, "Good. How are you?" Mike, he's got his, like I said, literally hands in his pockets. It looks like Archie wandered into a stripper bar and is about to get massacred. And we're going to get stomped to death. I know we are. So I literally walk right past them as they're holding this guy back. He's going to go and confront Mike. I walk up to Mike and I grab him by the shoulder and I go, "We're leaving now." And he's like, "What?" And I turned him around and I just walked him right out the door, and we had to walk right past those guys. And the whole time this guy's just like, "Yeah, you fucking better go." He's like under his breath, and we got outside, and Mike is just like, "What was that about?" So I tell him what happened, and he's like, "Woo, we almost died." And so now you would think after a near-death experience we would go back to our hotel. Of course we won't. There's an adult bookstore right next door. So we go, all right, well, let's go ahead and kill some time in there. So we walk into the adult bookstore, and it's, I got to tell you, it's the busiest adult bookstore I've ever been in my life. Like, you ever see those commercials for Visa where the music's going ding, 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 and everybody's paying with the check card, and everybody's it's just like a bossa nova line to get out? That's what's happening. It's that busy in this adult bookstore. And as I'm walking around and I'm, perusing butt plugs, because you never know what's going to happen in South Dakota, I see Mike is looking, and there's 2 guys who are looking at Mike. And they're looking at him like kind of from afar. And Mike looks up at them. And you can't see me, but this guy is looking at Mike in the face, and this guy winks at Mike. And again, Mike, Mike to me is the most unassuming guy in the world. He literally is dressed like he just left a PTA meeting on his way to a family picnic. That's what he looks like. But these guys start winking at him, and 2 guys now are winking at him, and they're trying to get him to go into the arcade, like to go follow them and watch a movie, and probably anally rape him, I would assume, at that point. But Mike comes up to me, and he's creeped out. He's like, "I think that guy winked at me." And I'm like, "All right, well, what do you want to do?" Because I'm not going to help him out of this. I want him to tell me. Does he want to go watch a movie with these fellas? Because we'll double date. I'll be his wingman if that's what he wants to do. But Mike, no, he's not interested in that. He's like, "Let's go ahead and take off." So we wound up splitting, and then we just went to our respective hotel rooms, locked the doors, pulled as many loose pieces of furniture in front of them as we could, and waited out the night until we could leave in the goddamn morning. And Mike and I, we had a few things like that happen. We had. Not exactly like that. One time we were on the road in North Dakota, and we were near an Indian reservation. And we go in to the convenience store, and there's a couple of Native American guys walking around. And one of them, he literally looks like the side of the Washington Redskins helmet. I mean, like he's that much of a stereotype looking guy. And except for his members only jacket, which was very smooth and certainly still in style. So we're walking around, and Mike is, he's looking at porn as he's wont to do. And by the way, I should say, Mike is not like a horrible, like pervert person, but when you're on the road, man, there's nothing to do if you don't drink. And Mike and I didn't drink, so this is what we did. So as we're there, this guy comes up to me, and he's got a crazy, like Dick Van Dyke roadmap gin blossom nose. I mean, he's so drunk. Like I'm drunk on fumes from the guy walking up to talk to me. Mike is walking around. The guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey, can we get a ride into town?" And I said, "Hey, I can't help you, Chief." Not thinking that this guy is a Native American. And because Chief is just something you say. You just say, "Hey, pal," or "Hey, buddy," or "Hey, friend," or "Hey, guy." And I'm not your friend, buddy. I'm not your buddy guy. And instead I said, "Oh, I go, no, I can't help you, Chief." And immediately in my head I went, "Oh, what did you do?" So the guy, he just goes, "Chief." And he sulks off to tell his buddy, I guess, what's happening. And so now they're going to scalp us. I don't know how those people work. So, but he's got enough firewater in him to do the job. I can tell you that. So I went to grab Mike. And Mike is like, elbow deep in Plumpers or some horrible porn magazine to make me laugh, because that was another thing we would do. You'd be standing there and he'd go, "Hey, dude, look at this." And he would hand you like the most horrifyingly offensive picture that he could possibly find in the porn. And you tried to bust your friend with that. So it's like one time we're doing that, and Mike is looking through a porn magazine because we're looking for pictures to, make each other go, "Ah." And Mike looks down and he makes a face, and I see him, and he like almost like a ghost, like white as a ghost, like he saw a ghost face. And he goes, "Dude, is that me?" And he holds up the porn magazine, and I'm not lying to you. There's a sex scene in there, and it's like one guy with like 4 chicks, and there's another guy, but the one dude looked exactly like Mike Toomey. And I'm like, "Wow, dude, that is you. How did that happen?" And we had to buy it. So he bought that magazine, and he showed it to his wife. He's just like, "Hey, is that me?" And I think he still has it, actually, to this day. So if you see Mike Toomey, ask him to show you the porn picture where he looks like it looks like him getting laid with like 9 chicks. But it was hysterical. We would go on the road, and one time we did Grand Forks, North Dakota, and we drove overnight to get there. It was like really late, and so it's like an 11-hour haul from Chicago. So we got there. And we had radio. We had to do a radio show at like 2:00 in the afternoon. So we got there probably around 6 in the morning and crashed. We completely slept. And then we woke up and we zombified it over to the radio station. And we had to do a radio show with a guy named Donovan Blue. That was his name. Donovan Blue on the radio in the afternoon. And we get there and Donovan's like, "Oh, things are crazy. Did you guys see the news?" And we said, "No." And he goes, "Oh, man, some Branch Davidians blew up a post office on the anniversary of Waco." And I said, "Seriously?" And I go, "In this town?" And he goes, "No, man, it's like I forget where in Nebraska, but it's a Branch Davidians blew up a post office in Nebraska." We're like, "Oh, that's crazy." So we do our radio show, and we split, and we go back to the hotel, and I turn on the television, and I see the news report of the federal building in Oklahoma City that has been blown up that day. This guy works in a national media market. Granted, it's North Dakota, but it's still part of the United States. And he's on the radio, and he told me that the Branch Davidians blew up a post office in Nebraska to commemorate the anniversary of Waco. That's what he thought the federal building being blown up by Timothy McVeigh was. So that's what I'm dealing with on the road with radio guys. And another time, Mike and I did a radio interview with a guy, and he was an AM guy, and he was kind of like a Rush Limbaugh knockoff, and he had another news guy join him in. So the 4 of us are trying to round table. And let me tell you something, when you're a comic, there's nothing worse than trying to round table with radio hosts, because they're supposed to be kind of feeding you lines and just kind of laughing, and we're all trying to get through it. But when they try to be funny and top you because it's their show and they're getting uncomfortable if you're funny, then you just kind of try to ride it out and do the best that you can, because all you're trying to do is get people into the club. So we're on with these 2 guys, and we said something, because we were trying to trade, and there was silence, and Mike said, "Oh, were you stymied?" And the guy said, "Oh, you mean like Stymie from the Little Rascals?" And then the news guy, because I don't know why he thought to do this, but he said, "You know what? Let's get racist." He goes, "Stymie was a monkey," on the air. Actually says Stymie was a monkey. And there's this beat of silence where Mike and I look at each other and we're like, I can't believe that guy just said that. But then the guy said, "Yeah, I'd love to give him a banana and steal that hat of his." So not even taking it back, not even pulling back in any degree at all, just going, you know what, I'm going to I'm going all in with my racism at this point. But you know what? Nothing happened. Nothing. Not one call of complaint. Nobody called up. So either nobody was listening, or in that part of the country, nobody was fazed by Stymie as a monkey. And actually, Mike and I then decided we were going to have T-shirts that said "Stymie was a monkey" and try to sell them in North Dakota. We'd be rich. We could have retired by this time. But that's what Mike and I did on the road. We would go to strip clubs, and we would also go to Goodwill shops and look for stuff. And we would go to comic book shops because we would go look for action figures for Mike's kids. And by Mike's kids, of course, I mean we'd be finding action figures for Mike that he would somehow let his kids use, because he is a giant child like me. So we would, and I loved the hunt, like that's all I cared about. But then we would go into the comic book store and we would have like kind of a weird superior attitude. Like we'd look around, but at the same time, we'd be like, nerds. So we're looking one time at we're in Wisconsin and we're walking through a comic book store. And these two guys are debating Red Lantern against Green Lantern. Or I honestly don't know what it means, but the two of them were debating about who was more powerful. Like right out of a movie, these two guys at the front counter are debating who's more powerful between the Green Lanterns. And Mike and I are like, this is hysterical. These nerds, and we're looking around. So then it's like quiet. They stop arguing. And all of a sudden the guy behind the desk just goes, "Ooh, is that the Mach 5 on your keychain?" Because Mike has the Mach 5 on his keychain. And he just goes, "I'm a bigger nerd than these two guys at the counter." And he just turns around and he goes, "Yeah." And they go, "Oh, that is awesome. Can we see it?" So he hands the guy the keys. The guy actually puts it on the desk and like drives it around like the Mach 5 on his keys. And I'm just looking at Mike just going, "Yeah, they're nerds, buddy," as they drive your Mach 5 around the counter, trailing the Batman head that you have hanging off the other end of your keys. Oh, and you know what, though? Speaking of the Mach 5, I saw Speed Racer, and I liked it. I don't know why everybody in the world is so invested in making sure that this movie bombs and has a last shovelful of dirt thrown on it, but I didn't think it was bad. I mean, sure, it is 45 minutes too long. And maybe that's why it's bad, because it's too long by half. That sounds like a lot of chunk of material you could take out is 45 minutes. But I thought the last 15 minutes of the movie was great, and I didn't think the acting was as bad from the stars and stuff. But I'll tell you what, 2 hours and 15 minutes, that is way too long to be asking children to watch a film, because finally at like the 45-minute mark, there's a little kid in front of us. He just stood up and drove for like the next 25 minutes. Just stood up and going, just moving his hands like he was holding a steering wheel, driving and making the noise. And I went with David, my friend David, he's shushing kids at Speed Racer. Shh, you can't shush kids at Speed Racer. The whole thing is like a fever dream, for God's sakes. It's nothing but colors, and they're eating Twizzlers, and then there's speed, and then there's a monkey. I mean, you can't ask kids to calm down. You're lucky they didn't all just realize that there was more of them than us, and they just killed us and ate us for sustenance. At that point, just concede that that's what it's going to be like. But I didn't think it was that bad. I'll tell you, I didn't. And but I went to movies with Karen, and my wife, she is as loud as the kids were. My wife opening candy or eating popcorn is the loudest thing you'll ever hear in your life. I mean, it's louder than a jet engine to me, quite frankly. We'll be sitting there. My wife, she could open a mint for 4 minutes. Seriously, just like one of those like Starburst mints. They're not Starburst, like the Sunburst mints in one tiny wrapper. And she would just crinkle the noise and open it up. And I mean, I actually have to grab her hand and look at her like, "What are you doing?" She'll be getting popcorn. She's getting popcorn out of the bucket. It sounds like she's tunneling out of a prison camp. Just, what are you doing? The popcorn on the top is fine. Eventually you'll get to the bottom popcorn. It's not like a loaf of bread where you skip past 3 pieces of bread and get the bread from the middle because it's better. All the popcorn's going to be consumed. Please eat it from the top down and avoid making the loudest noise I've ever heard in my life. But it didn't hinder my enjoyment of Speed Racer. I enjoyed it. It is way too long, but I still thought it was good. So that's what I would do on the road with Mike because I didn't drink. I should have started drinking. Things would have been different. Although, how could it be worse? Seriously, can you imagine if I was drunk in these stories? I'd be in jail right now if I was a guy who drank. Yeah, but or I'd be in Riverside. That's what I'd do. I would have a place in Riverside if I drank. I would live here with Eric. I would live with Eric. I would live with Eric and his wife, and she would hate me. It would be fantastic. She would just fix me with her steely stare and not talk to me ever. It's funny because Eric, Eric and I we're becoming friends. Like we didn't know each other, and he sent me an email and he was like, "Dude, let me produce your podcast." And I'm like, "Great." Because all I need is somebody who plans to do all the work, and then I'm going to go ahead and just do it. So that was all I needed. That was the prodding. And then I come to Riverside sometimes, and I met his wife, and his wife hates me. It is the weirdest thing because I say it now because she just walked in, so we had to stop, and she didn't even say hi to me. I mean, like I'm literally like I'm furniture. Like she came in, talked to Eric, gave him a hug, walked around, and then he asked her. She was going to sit in the living room. And he's like, you know what, you might want to go in the bedroom because you don't want to hear this nonsense. And she's like, well, I'm just going to sit on the couch and read a book. And he goes, well, I don't know if you want to hear this. And she's like, fine, I'll go in the bedroom. And she goes in the bedroom, literally, and didn't even look at me like I'm a bug. Oh, can't stand me. Because we went to a restaurant. We went out last time I was in Riverside. We went out to eat, and she's made it very clear that she doesn't think I'm funny. And believe me, if you don't think I'm funny, there's no reason to know me, because I don't have anything else to offer really, except for being a funny guy. So we went out to eat, and a waitress came up to the table, and when I go out to eat, I'm silly. That's kind of who I am. I'm a goof. I'm a child. I'm a moron. So this waitress comes up to the table and she's holding a bowl with nothing but red cabbage in it. That's all she's got, red cabbage. And she comes up to the table and it's me and Eric and his lovely wife. And the waitress says, hey, can I get you guys anything else? And I said, do you guys have any red cabbage? And she says, what? I said, seriously, I would really love some red cabbage if you guys carry it. And she goes, I don't. And then she looks down, realizes she's got a bowl of red cabbage. Ha ha, wackiness ensues. We all laugh. Everything's great. She leaves. A week later, I hear from Eric, hey, I don't think my wife's going to go out to eat with us anymore. I said, why? He goes, well, she didn't really get you like at the restaurant. She thought you were making fun of the waitress with the red cabbage thing. I said, but I was being silly. I mean, nobody was harmed in the red cabbage incident, which is what we heretofore known as the red cabbage incident. And he goes, yeah, well, it made her uncomfortable. And she thought you were kind of picking on the waitress, even though I wasn't. I couldn't have been picking on her less. It's not like I punched her in the breast and said, where's the red cabbage, idiot? No, the whole point was I was the stupid one in the story. That's something we've done forever. I've done that constant. It's something Mike Toomey and I used to do when we'd be on the road. That was what we loved to do, is we would go into a place and ask them if they had something, whatever the biggest display that they had was, we would ask them if we walked into a store one time and they had an Altoids display that was like a rocket. I mean, it rivaled anything NASA would have built. It was the most complex thing I've ever seen. You had to walk in. It was right there, huge. We walked right up to the counter. We go, do you guys carry Altoids? Because the funniest part is they think you're stupid. They're just like, yeah, you walked right past the huge Altoid display, moron. You're like, oh, okay, there they are. And the best part, you don't buy any Altoids. You just leave. You just went and asked them if they had them. Mike, one time we were in a restaurant, some small town, and they had like, you know how a local town will have like a local publication? They had the Luncheon News. And literally the headline was Ham's Back. I don't know if it was a celebratory article. I don't know if it was a warning. I don't know if it was an investigative report. All I know is the Luncheon News was letting you know that Ham is back. And Mike walked right up to the counter, laid his hand on the Luncheon News, and asked the lady, excuse me, do you guys carry the Luncheon News? And she just gave him the look like, what? Yeah, I'm just wondering if you guys carry the Luncheon News. It's right there, sir, if you want it. And he goes, Ham is back. Fantastic. We walked out. He's not buying it. He doesn't want it. So I can tell you that if we had done that with Eric and his wife, she would have stormed out and apologized for, denying people for us. That I don't get it, man. I just don't get it. It's so weird. I mean, I'm used to being not liked because people think I'm an idiot, but it's just so weird to have a guy who is so in tune with what I want to do and thinks I'm funny and really enjoys what I do. And he's married to somebody who wouldn't spit on me if I was on fire. It's the craziest thing. Weirdest dynamic I've ever seen. And it's such a weird experience. All right. So, well, here, I'll tell the story that he forced his wife to go into the bedroom and hide from. Because he's like, I don't think you want to hear this. And the funny part is like he's judging this story as if that's what she doesn't want to hear. Believe me, she doesn't want to hear anything out of my mouth. She thought the cabbage thing was the worst insult I could inflict on anybody. I'm glad she didn't hear me talk about, vaginas last week. What if she did love me? What if she listens to the podcast and secretly just laughs her ass off, but tries to play it cool around Eric because she's like, you know what? I don't like it, man. She told Eric I'm his hobby. Like, I don't think she calls me Mike. She's like, is your hobby coming over this afternoon? That's who I am. I'm Eric's hobby. Good Christ. So here's the story he forced her to hide from. I sleep in the nude, and go ahead and take that image with you every time you think about me in this podcast. And maybe it's a good idea that she hid from this story, probably, because she doesn't want to even know that I breathe, let alone how I sleep. So anyway, I sleep in the nude, and the reason I do that is because I wear boxer briefs, like in my normal life, in my Clark Kent life. I wear boxer briefs. When I'm Superman, I'm completely naked. But I don't like sleeping in boxer briefs because when you roll over, stuff gets trapped. There's not a freedom of movement, and it's like, and the thing is, you wind up with like a male camel toe, which, by the way, that is the term people use, a male camel toe, when your junk is all pressed up and smashed. And I don't like that. I think it needs its own term because camel toe is so descriptive of what it is. We need to move past it. That's its own entity. We need something for the male version. So I thought of two. I thought of this because, when you're wearing jeans and your balls kind of get separated and they're off on either side, I thought of this. How about a click-clack? Remember that toy when you were a kid? It's like a big piece of string with just two balls on the end of it, and bang, 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 you clicked it. I go with a click-clack. But my favorite one, this is what that I thought of, is, when you've got your junk all smashed up in your jeans to the side and it's like kind of just there and you can't help but see it. I call that a Han Solo. Because you remember when Han Solo was, when they captured him and he was frozen in carbonite and he couldn't move, but he was just kind of like the outline of him was pressed up there? That's what I think when I see some guy's junk all smashed up in his jeans. Every time I watch The Song Remains the Same and I see Robert Plant's cock lurking at me on a giant screen, I think, fucking Plant's got a Han Solo. That's what I think to myself. So I don't want a Han Solo. So I get up and I'm sleeping nude in my house. So the other morning I wake up and I'm sleeping naked, and I wake up and I get up, and in my apartment, like when you leave my bedroom, you can either turn right and immediately go into the bathroom, or you can go left into the living room. Now in the living room there's a giant picture window. And when my wife went to work that day, she left the blinds open. So I can either, like I said, hop in the shower, or I can go try to close the blinds. Now, again, like I said, I'm naked, and I just woke up, by the way, so I can tell you I have a friend in town, if you know what I mean. I'm just raging. So I could either, like I said, go to the right, take care of all the bathroom business that needs to be taken care of, or I can go to the left and try to close the blinds. There is a third option. I guess I could go ahead and throw on some pants like a big boy and go ahead and spare everybody the ensuing awkwardness. But why would I do that? God forbid. I figure it's 5 steps. I'll close the blinds and then I'll hop in the shower. So I take a hard left turn, and I do mean a hard left turn. It is in the morning. Good. I knocked that down, friends. Hard left turn. Awful. So I go left and I go to the blinds. And as I get closer to the blinds, they're about 2/3 open. So it's like one of those magic eye paintings where you focus and you see where you look and you see the blinds, but if you focus, you can see out and see a unicorn or whatever the hell is out in the courtyard. So as I'm walking, I get about 3 steps away from the blinds, and I go magic eye, and I see that Adrian, the hot chick who plays the cello upstairs, has walked down the stairs, which face my window, and she is walking directly toward my picture window. Now I'm standing there. And again, it's early in the morning. I've got a fucking rager going on, and I see her. And so the thing is, if she looks at the window, she's going to see blinds. But if she goes magic eye, I got a heart on, so she's going to see unicorn. Certainly, at least the horn is happening. So I'm frozen. I don't know what to do. I can either, try to run, which is even going to be weirder, because if she stands there, imagine if you looked and you just saw me like prancing, running naked like a sprite in my house with a heart on. That would be awful. What the hell's happening in there? I wouldn't even want to know. So I immediately rule out that. So I think, you know what? I'll just reach over and close the blinds really fast. But the problem is, the blinds have 2 chains. It's a 2-chain pulley system. So if I grab one and I pull it and I close them, bang, problem is solved. But if I grab the other and I pull them open, well, we've gone from awkward to second-class felony at this point. As I might as well just have a raincoat, because literally it looks like I just reach over and I grab the blinds. It's like, boom, ha-ha, check it out. Play your cello with that right there. There's your bow. So I don't want to do that. So I don't know what to do. I can, like I said, I don't want to run, but I also don't want to go for the blinds. And so I don't know what to do. So here's what I do. This is what I come up with in my fucking tiny brain. This is what I decide to do. I belly flop to the floor. I do a naked belly flop, by the way, with a hard-on, which is supremely dangerous because, let's face it, and it's a morning hard-on, so my cock could have punched a hole in the floor. Who knows what's going to happen if I come in at the wrong angle? And but instead I was able to kind of like shift and it moved, but I go boom, and I just flattened out on my stomach like a Green Beret, which to me, at the time seemed like a good idea, but quite frankly, if she looks in and sees that, that's got to be even weirder. Like I'm, like a dog just dragging my balls across the floor because I'm naked face down on the rug. Now I look like a drunk out of a movie. But whatever, it worked, I guess. I don't know if she looked at it or saw it, but here's the thing. I go down, and when I flop, it's an apartment, so it makes this huge noise, like this wham noise, and I look like I may have just passed out or dropped dead, naked on the ground. But as I hit the ground, bang, my wife not only had the blinds at 2/3 open, But she had lit a candle before she left, and she left the candle on, and it's on the television set, which is on my left. As I hit the ground, the candle tumbles off the television and hits me in the back, splashes me with hot candle wax, all from my literally from my neck to the bottom of my ass. I'm covered in candle wax. Yeah. And there's nothing, believe me, there's nothing more humiliating than going into the shower and washing hot candle wax out of your ass crack when there hasn't been any sex involved whatsoever. You don't even have a good memory to pull from that. All you know is that you're sitting there with your wife's loofah trying to get hot candle wax out of your ass. And believe me, it is stories like that have made Eric's wife hide in the bedroom every time I come to Riverside. Sadly, that's so true. All right. Let's wrap this up so she can come and use her house. I'll tell you that go ahead and go to MikeSchmidtComedy.com for any communiques and appearances. And also you can listen to the episode there, obviously. But and send me an email, Mike@MikeSchmidtComedy.com. Let me know what you think of the show. I'd appreciate hearing from you. And also you can go to MySpace.com/MikeSchmidtComedy. Check that out. Check out all the fun things that I've posted on MySpace. And by fun, I mean none. I've posted no things on MySpace. I change the picture once in a while and write a new blog. Enjoy it. And so that's MikeSchmidtComedy.com. Go to MySpace.com/MikeSchmidtComedy. And also go to ComedyFilmNerds.com because we are starting my column. I think has a name now. I think they're building a thing for me, but it's going to be called The Back Row with Mike Schmidt. There was a column up last week. There should be a second column up now about my going to see the movie Red Belt and my adventures in my brain of what I would do to David Mamet if I met him. So go ahead and check out that article at ComedyFilmNerds.com. And again, always go ahead and check out the shows and appearances. Right now, nothing. I've got something coming up at the end of the month, like the 30th, and then, of course, I'll be at open mics all over Los Angeles. So I want to thank Eric Butterfield for going ahead and gritting his teeth and risking divorce by doing this show every week. I do appreciate it, and I want to thank you guys for listening. That's great. Thank you so much for tuning into the 40-Year-Old Boy. And, if you got any thoughts in your head for what we can go ahead and do to Eric's wife and get her on board with me, go ahead and shoot me an email and let me know because, again, I think we've all heard from this podcast, I don't have a lot of success with women unless they're naked. And by then, I'm not really having success with them. I should say I don't have a lot of success with women unless they're naked and I'm paying them. Let's go ahead and call it that because as long as I got a handful of singles, I got naked chicks all over this country who will listen to me whine about nothing. But I get a feeling that it's not going to work with Eric's wife if I walk in there with a handful of singles and go, hey, you want to listen to me? Be funny because I'm really hysterical. I don't think she's going to buy it. No matter what I'm selling, she is not buying it. She is just in the room right. As a matter of fact, I picture her right now in her own house, just leaning up against the door with a cup, like a glass, listening through it, just so she can hate me even more by realizing that she can't come out and use her apartment because I'm in here lurking. Okay, so go ahead and by all means, and let's go ahead and do me a favor, write her an email. You can probably get her at ericswifehatesmike.com. Go ahead and send her an email and get her on board with me. That would be fantastic. And see if we can go ahead and turn this whole situation around because as if Riverside was not uncomfortable enough, believe me, it is a lot more uncomfortable when I come here and one of the two people I know here hates me. And I guess I can't really blame her because I'm sitting in her house taking it over and I'm going ahead and telling stories about candle wax falling out of my ass. I can't find that to be too attractive for her. Honestly, I'd rather be at work. I'd rather be anywhere than having to listen to a story like that because God knows nobody wants to hear that story. But if you want to hear more stories about candle wax, go ahead and send me an email at MikeSchmidtCandlewaxintheass.com. Go ahead and get that to me and we'll go ahead and try to get as many stories as we possibly can. All of these horrible things. Oh, and by the way, everybody keeps saying to me, Mike, what are you going to do when awkward and embarrassing things stop happening to you and you won't be able to talk about them? Well, you know what I'll do then? I'll probably just go back to being funny like I used to be and not have to tell people. I'm a dick, folks. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a decent guy because I am a jerk. And I'm not a jerk. Man, I'm an awful guy. I'm not an awful guy. I am not a good guy. But I don't think I'm a bad person overall. So, and go ahead and by all means judge that. I'm kind of a jag-off. I got no future. What am I talking about? But I am a jagoff. And I'm not a jerk. I'm a nice guy. It's just I guess I have jerky tendencies. I've done so much ridiculous stuff, and then I wonder afterwards, I'm like, man, how come I don't hang out with anybody? Here's why, because you're a dick. You're fit. 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 You're fit.